Make sure your insurance doesn't come up short. Get gap cover with ALA. For more information, follow the links in the description. Hello everybody, this is the MG4 EV, one of Britain's best-selling electric family cars. And after recently driving the MG HS plug-in hybrid and coming away very impressed with it, I was keen to see just how a fully electric MG would fare and if this really is as good as everybody seems to think. After all, hundreds of thousands of Britons can't be wrong. Can they? Well, find out in today's episode of JayEmm on Cars. You find me today at the top secret JayEmm on Cars HQ, located on the edge of a hollowed out volcano just off the A12. Behind me, the ever fragrant Will the Plank is working on my Citroën BX. And just recently, he's also been doing a few things to my latest purchase, the Rover City Rover. And for those of a certain age, it might be cars like that you associate with MG Rover more than cars like this. Truth is though, had they built a few more things like this, they might have survived. If though, like me, you are stuck in the past and love things like this, then you'll want to know about Autodog, for they are one of the best sources of spare parts for almost any car you can imagine. And we have purchased things from Autodog for my Citroën, my MG, and my mini track cars. In fact, in the last month, I've used it half a dozen times alone. Such is the scale of my stupidity when it comes to buying cars. And don't forget, if you need something, not only is Autodog a website, it's also an app as well. You can filter by make and model, make sure you get the right part for your car. They offer an optional 200-day money-back guarantee, and if you use my discount code JayEmm5, you'll get 5% off most parts too. Back to the present though, and yes, I know, the MG of today doesn't really have much to do with the company of my youth and that of many others, instead being a badge engineering exercise for Chinese-built SAIC products. That though doesn't automatically mean that they are bad, and just recently I had a very interesting phone call with MG's PR team, who I want to give a real big thumbs up to because, unlike nearly every other Chinese manufacturer that I can name, they are happy to give me a car to deliver you an honest opinion. I know, not many of us are that interested in Chinese crossover SUVs, but they are what people buy. And so, for me, as an automotive journalist, I think it's important to try them and see whether they are or aren't any good. Problem is, just about none of them will let me have one without wanting to pay for my opinion, which, ironically, renders it worthless. MG though, I'm very happy to say, not indulging in such shenanigans, at least as far as I can tell, and though they've had their fair share of controversy, there's still a lot I like about the firm, including the fact they do still have design and development facilities here in the UK. And when it comes to the styling of the thing, I actually quite like it. It's kind of sharp, kind of bold, slight elements of Jaguar I-Pace here, a very sticky outy, pointy rear light cluster, which I do fear is going to get damaged more than a few times. However, overall, I think it quite works. Now, they also do a variant of this called the MG4 Urban. It's also a pure electric vehicle, but looks dramatically different. It's not simply this on some stilts. I believe in its home market, it's actually advertised as a different car entirely. I also greatly appreciate the fact that MG still offer a whole range of cars in 3 different powertrain options. So you have full combustion for the likes of the MG3 entry-level hatchback, full electric, and then hybrid. This, the 4, is available simply as a full electric, a BEV in modern day parlance. And I think they've packaged it fairly well too. So interior space is pretty good. You can get 4 adults in here, and though it's not overly generous, it's a bit better than you might expect. The footprint of the car is a little smaller than that of, say, a Ford Kuga, and quite a bit bigger than a Ford Puma. If they've compromised anywhere, it's in terms of the boot, which is just a bit smaller than I would like. This weekend, we wound up having an impromptu trip to the British Grand Prix, and trying to throw in camera kit, overnight bags and everything else, we filled it pretty quickly. However, when it comes to pricing, this car is very keen indeed. Oh, and in case you're wondering what on earth is going on in the background here, well, Will has discovered this morning that my BX now has the holy trinity of leaks. We spotted coolant coming out of it a few weeks ago, that's why it got parked up. Now it's leaking oil and, as of this morning, petrol too, and in quite some quantity. So if you suddenly think that the effects budget for the channel has gone through the roof, no, that's just Will in the back there. So if you happen to see him running through shot ablaze, please wave at me through your screens and I'll see if I can put him out. Anyway, as for this thing, it starts at just $29,995, and that is for the slightly confusingly named long-range model, which has a 64 kilowatt-hour battery and a 190 horsepower single electric motor located at the rear. This is then, I think, the sweet spot in the range, the extended range. Still rear-wheel drive, still single motor, now 245 horsepower and a 77 kilowatt-hour battery. And that's yours for $32,995. In fact, the only option on this whole car is the Ealing Green paintwork at about 645 quid. Above these, you then have the X-Power. Yep, the return of that Larry brand of the early 2000s. And here it'll give you two motors with 435 horsepower, unfortunately then combined with the short range battery, the 64 kilowatt hour, but that is only $33,995. I mean, look, say what you will about EVs, but we now live in a world where for 34 grand you can get a 435 horsepower car. And with these weighing just 1.8 tons, fairly impressive for an EV of any description, they're pretty decent performers as well. The spec too is very impressive. This car even has full 360-degree cameras, climate control, wireless charging, electric windows all round, electric adjustment for the driver's seat. It's got all of the now mandatory ADAS, and MG have been listening to their customers too, because whereas in the HS, to change simple things like the HVAC, you have to go into the touchscreen, now there are proper physical controls for it as well. But it's not perfect, this. There are a few oversights that I find rather frustrating. Let's start with the key, shall we? Now, I think a lot of manufacturers out there really overlook the importance of the key. See, for a great many people, this is going to be one of the things you touch the most when it comes to your car. This is, well, it's the key for your vehicle. It's the thing that lets you unlock it, lock it, access it, open the boot. You're going to interact with this a whole lot of the time. Now, some companies do this very, very well indeed. Others are atrocious. Tesla, I'm looking at you. And I simply don't buy this whole, well, look, it's the 21st century, the key's not really that common anymore. If you have it, you're just going to leave it in your pocket, and for many, you'll just have an app. No, no, no. I don't care. A car is a luxury item. Doesn't matter how much you paid for it, it's an expensive thing, and the key should reflect that. Now, in some ways, the MG one is off to a good start. It's inspired by one of their old streamliners, the Roaring Raindrop, as it's very keen to tell you on the back. Problem is, though, it's an awful piece of design, not in terms of looks, but in terms of tactility and ergonomics. You see, any decent car key, you should know exactly what button is which simply from touching it. Reach into your pocket, grab the key, you should be able to lock your car, unlock it, or open the boot without needing to look at the thing. This one, there's only one raised point, which is actually on the boot, and then above it, well, not really an easy way to tell when you have or haven't touched a particular part. The MG logo itself doesn't actually do anything. You can, though, press this button down here. Oh, apparently do nothing. Might work when the car's locked. Hold, please. Hey! All right, that's enough. Yep, pipe down. Thank you. This week too, I've had a lot more passengers in the back of the car than normal, and with the extreme heat we've been facing in the UK this month, they've pointed something out, which is the fact that although it's a nice roomy place to be in here with plenty of nice soft touch materials and very little in the way of horrid scratchy plastics for both front and rear, there are no vents in the back of this thing at all, meaning that when you've left the car for a while and you have to go back to it, to cool it down takes quite some time, and the passengers in the rear really don't feel the effects for a fair while. In 2026, that seems like quite the oversight. Then, for the driver, another annoyance. See, in that HS that I drove, the owner had put blue tack over the camera that's supposed to look at you and see whether you're paying attention to what you're doing. MG told me very proudly they fixed that with something they call MG Pilot Custom. And this is fairly simple. Other manufacturers do a similar thing. It's a good idea. See, we all moan about the fact all of this ADAS stuff that nobody likes turns itself on every time you get into the car, and it's really difficult to turn it off. That's legally mandated. This isn't MG's doing, or anybody else's for that matter. So what manufacturers have been doing is finding ways to make it easy for you to turn this stuff off. And so MG come up with a solution similar to others. What it is, go into the settings, choose your personal preferences, because some of the stuff you might like, some of it you might not. When you're done, save it as a custom function. Then when you get in the car with 2 fingers, you can scroll down the top of the screen and there is the button to engage MG Pilot Custom Mode. The problem, now please tell me, is this me or is this just, well, cars? When I get in modern cars, hop in, drive, and then in about 30 seconds I'm reminded of the fact all this stuff is still on. So then you press the buttons. Case in point, where I live is a 30 limit and then a 60 limit. However, this and many other cars mistake that 60 limit for a 40, which it's not. So, within 30 seconds of leaving the house, I'm being told off for speeding when I'm not. Scroll the screen down, press the button, it won't engage the custom mode because you have to do that when you're in park. That's annoying. I always forget about these things. It's one of my major bugbears with modern cars. People spend a lot of time looking at these screens, getting distracted by the whole thing. Maybe that's their logic with disabling it when you're on the move, but surely it's simpler to allow you to just scroll down, press the button and do what you tell it to, rather than still allow you to go into all the option screens, turn everything off manually. That I don't like at all. However, other than the fact that the Alcantara in the middle, I think, looks a little bit low rent, it's probably not real Alcantara either, this is all right. It follows the logic. It follows my commandment of, if you're not going to put much in a car, then make it nice. Compared with the Toyota Aygo Cross that I drove fairly recently, which is not that much cheaper than this for a much, much smaller car, this feels pretty good. Sure, the main display's not the best in the world. The steering wheel controls, they don't feel the greatest. And there is some real daftness in some of the way it's set up. So for example, I took ages trying to find the cruise control button. That's because there's one with a little picture of a speedo and a camera, and that's for the speed limiter. But the one for the cruise control is actually the one with a picture of a steering wheel. I guess that's because it can do some active driving assist stuff as well, but whatever happened to just putting a picture of a speedo or a button that says cruise? Yeah. Also, this sort of faux carbon looking stuff, guys, it's a 33 grand MG hatchback. Just put some aluminium there or some wood trim if you want to be old school, bit of piano black, something like that. I don't know. No, not piano black. You get fingerprints on that. The other major frustration I've had with the car is that by default, there isn't really a way to turn it on or off. And in the age of an EV, I think an on-off switch is a somewhat antiquated thing. Now, there is a power off option in the menu, but clearly you're not intended to use it very frequently. What this does mean, though, is that when you get out of the car and simply walk away, where most cars with keyless entry would just lock themselves, this doesn't. It just stays on. Now, I've learned this, and so I know every time I leave it to press the button here and it'll lock. It also doesn't have, unlike many other cars, a sensor in the handle to know when you're touching it. So at the very least, if like me, you're paranoid about locking your cars, you can check it's locked without it then unlocking itself. These things, though, do seem to be, in the grand scheme of things, minor gripes. What is it like, though, to drive? That is where the HS was both good and bad. So, can the MG4 better it? Let's find out. Now, just in case you didn't see my review of the HS, the reason its owner purchased it is because of all of the vehicles in that category he drove, it was the one that gave him the best driving feel. And true to his word, the steering was actually pretty decent. Unfortunately, the chassis was set up so softly, the thing would just roll into every bend, the tyres would start screeching, and if you wanted to have anything approaching a dynamic driving experience, the car just didn't want to cooperate. And though technically what we have here is a fairly new car, having been introduced only last year, it is mechanically very similar indeed to the first generation MG4. But that should be okay, because that's a car that got a lot of very positive reviews, including from places you wouldn't expect it. And chief amongst the things they praised, the driving experience. So, what's it like? As with many modern cars, there are a few different modes you can choose from. But, to be honest, I've tested them and there's not much of a difference. There is also a custom one and there's not a lot you can set. All you have is the power, the steering feel and the pedal force. So, for the sake of science, let's put them all into sport. In terms of the go, it's very impressive. Feels at least it's 245 horsepower and, as you'd expect from an EV, it's all delivered instantaneously and virtually silently. Both for driving around town, getting out of junctions, and also when you're out and about on a B road, the performance here is very good. In fact, I don't really think it needs any more. If anything, I think with a bit more, it might be a bit sketchy, because this car, well, it's not perfect. Now, the main complaint I've had has actually been, once again, from those in the rear, who say the ride here is very harsh. My passengers have not been happy with me. And from the captain's chair, I can kind of see what they're talking about. See, this car has a very unresolved ride. It feels overdamped and undersprung. It's constantly fidgeting around town in particular. It's not very pleasant. You hit even a minor imperfection in the road and the thing will crash straight through it, and it's just not that great. Now, on the odd section of road I've had where it's been fairly flowing and undemanding, the car feels good, but then anything in that scenario should. And, like in the HS, the steering is pretty nice too. The brakes too are pretty good, nicely calibrated, fairly linear, good response, not much in the way of a dead spot at the top of the pedal. I like them. What concerns me though, is that even with this car having 245 horsepower, I've felt the odd moment where it feels like the chassis is about to get itself in a bit of trouble. This car, with another near 200 horsepower, that would give me cause for concern. There have been a few moments on some of my favourite test roads which are pretty demanding in terms of undulation, where it feels like the chassis is trying to tuck in under itself. The Volvo EX30 I drove was the same. The Chinese apparently can give a car lots and lots of power, but when it comes to controlling it, they just don't seem to get it quite right. The other thing that's been frustrating me with this car, the range estimation. Now, I've moaned about delta dissipation before. This, I think, might be the most extreme example I've ever seen. When this car was first delivered, I charged it fully and it said it'd give me 311 miles of range. Now, that I felt did seem a bit optimistic. But the car itself should be able to give you an accurate estimation of how much range it's got. And in this, at one point, I charged it to 100% and it told me it'd give me 330 miles of range, which would be great if it were true. For some context, it's now down to 82% battery power and it's claiming 220 miles of range. And it definitely hasn't done 100 miles since I started. As the week has progressed, the car has clearly learned because it has improved things a little bit and now gives me a slightly more realistic estimate, but even so, it's not brilliant. What is the efficiency, for if that's to be believed, this car has been doing anywhere from 3.6 to 4.1 miles per kilowatt hour the entire time I've had it. That's very good indeed. The other disappointment, the peak charging speed. The couple of times I have plugged it into a fast charger, I've got only a 90 kilowatt charge out of it. And that, compared to many other cars, it's just not that great. However, for most people using this, I don't think it's a problem. But if I were being honest, as a day-to-day tool, though it didn't have quite the punch of this, that HS did feel like a much nicer place to be. The quality of materials, the space available to it, everything in it, bar the annoying touchscreen over here, did feel nicer. Though this has grown on me in the time I've had it, I did open the door and have a moment where I just went, oh, okay, this isn't quite as good as I was expecting. But then I have to remind myself, it's a 33 grand car. And in this day and age, that isn't a lot anymore. What's most frustrating is I think in here there is a near 5-star car, but that's not what this is. Those little niggles, the lack of vents in the back, the harsh ride, oh, and the absolutely massive blind spot this A-pillar can create at certain corners, they have got in the way. So it's still a decent car, this. It's just not brilliant. Hopefully though, they'll still let me have a go at the Cyberster, because I don't know about you, but I really don't know what to expect with that one. Fingers crossed, I'll get to find out soon. Anyway, I want to say a big thank you to MG for lending me the car, and as ever, to you for watching. Don't forget to hit the like button, comment down below, subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you for the next one. Bye bye.